You're listening to the Believe in Giants podcast with two-time Super Bowl winner Carl Banks and the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa.
And we welcome you to another edition of Believe in Giants, presented by FanDuel. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks, and backed by popular demand from The Athletic, Ian O'Connor joins us on this episode. And Banks, you've missed the last few that I've done with Ian, but now we got the whole band together. This is fun.
Yeah. I was actually, we were speaking off air. I was covering Big 12, Big East, and Big 10 basketball during those periods. So, yeah. But I saw the shows, and Ian is always a wealth of knowledge.
Yes, and Ian, you were busy watching the reverse Christian Laettner scenario as UConn pulls a rabbit out of its hat. I mean, the drama with that, and someone made a really good point. Everybody was expecting that UConn was going to foul. I saw this on the internet. I saw this on Twitter, and there was just a shot of like the fans. You know, in today's sports, when a big moment's coming, everybody's got their phone out and they're like videotaping it. No one had their phone out because everybody was waiting for a foul, and they didn't have the wherewithal to have their phone out. So they got to do it the old school way and just watch it and have the memory of it forever.
Yeah, you know what was amazing too? I was sitting almost directly behind Grant Hill, obviously, and I was there in 1992 in the Philadelphia Spectrum when Grant Hill made the pass to Laettner. Of course, Pitino didn't put a man on Grant Hill to sort of obstruct his vision, and Grant Hill threw a perfect strike down the field to Laettner. But it was a design play, and once Laettner caught the ball in that game, he was 10 for 10 from the field, 10 for 10 from the line. And he took a turnaround jumper, and when it released, I was courtside. I could see it was going in. So, but it was a design play. In this case, it was such a shocking development. First of all, there was no possible way for UConn to win that game. They missed 17 of their first 18 three-point attempts. Mm-hmm. They're down 19 to the best team in the country. Arguably, Arizona could be there and Michigan as well. There was no way to win that game, and they won it. So I actually think it was more shocking, really even more magical than the Laettner play. And I was there for both.
Wow.
And when Mullins took the shot in midair, it looked perfect, just like Laettner's did. And Laettner did pop into my head before that ball went through the rim. And it's just funny that Grant Hill was there for CBS courtside for both. So, yeah, it was a magical moment.
Well, and that's why we love sports, because it's unscripted. I mean, let's face it, right? I mean, Duke didn't even have to – they could have just held the ball. They could have just held the ball and the game's over. But in athletic competitions, and Carl played it at the highest level as a two-time Super Bowl champion, sometimes stuff happens, Carl, and you lose your presence, right?
Yeah. In the moment, man, you see it time and time again in every sport. But it's been thrilling. It's going to be a lot of fun watching this Final Four, because there are, like, I think of all the teams, UConn still looks like the least of the favorites, because everybody else just, Michigan just looks unstoppable. Arizona's so athletic. And so I don't, but UConn will find a way. Hurley seems to figure it out.
Yeah, I wanted to also add that Caden Boozer, the way he conducted himself in the locker room afterward was unbelievable. First of all, he took all the blame, which he shouldn't have done. It was one play. Right. And it was a play most of us would have tried to make, because you had two guys down the court for a clinching dunk, wide open. And he could not have been more professional as a young man in college. The way he handled it, he shook hands with reporters who were grilling him on that play. And I don't know, that kid, to me, I felt so terribly for him. But now I'm going to be his biggest fan going forward. I hope he has a great NBA career.
He will. So, Ian, let me ask, because this is a question that, from where the chair you sit in the microphone that you hold in front of head coaches, what do you find different about John Harbaugh as the head coach as opposed to the previous three? Like, your first couple months just being around and talking to him, are there distinct differences, or is it coach speak, just a little more seasoned? What do you think, or what do you see?
It's instant credibility, Carl, walking through the door that they didn't have in their previous coaches after Tom Coughlin at all. And obviously you played for somebody who had that all the time after his first season. And once he got his feet underneath him, Bill Parcells obviously became an all-time great. But the Giants needed somebody to walk through the door and command everyone's attention, command the room. I know these are cliches with football coaches, but it really is true with him. And to have won 193 games and a Super Bowl, the Giants have never hired a Super Bowl winning coach. And so I think that it's all about the consistency of winning that he established in Baltimore. And obviously, as a disappointment, he never won that second Super Bowl. In some ways, his career mirrors that of like Aaron Rodgers as a player. Like the knock against it was he never got that second ring. And John was a consistent winner, though, 193 total wins, including the postseason. His problems have been in the postseason, some disappointments there. I think Giants fans, given what they've seen for the better part of 14 years, would sign up for that as your biggest problem. Postseason disappointment. So credibility, Carl, I think, with the players, with the media, with the fan base, and I think this is the biggest in my lifetime. I think this is the biggest hire that the Giants have made at the time of the hiring. So obviously, as a general columnist, I'll cover the Yankees in the postseason. And when they're done in the second, third week of October, I always look forward to turning my attention to the Giants. In recent years, by the time I get there, the Giants are out of it. And they're out of it before Halloween. With John Harbaugh, you're not going to be out of it before Halloween. So I'm really looking forward to meaningful December games, maybe meaningful January games right away. And I know he's thinking of making the playoffs right out of the chute. So let's see how that plays out.
So, Ian, just to follow up on that, what's your sense of his sense of the team that he inherited, right? Because there's two ways to look at it. You can look at it as this was a team that had double-digit leads in multiple games. They had a really difficult schedule last year, and against teams that were chalk teams, i.e., the Denver Broncos. They were up 18 in Denver in that football game in the fourth quarter. Does he look at it as the glass half full, or does he look at it as, despite whatever they were able to do from a positive standpoint last year, there's a lot more work to be done with this roster than people think?
I think he looks at it, Bob, as more than half full. And I remember talking to him the day after he got fired. And right away, I was shocked. Right away, he was saying, I think the Giants are the team for me. And now I'm not going to repeat some things, only things that he's then said publicly in that conversation. But this is the day after. And I was like, wow, this guy, he was already picturing himself running out of the tunnel with the Giants. He was picturing himself in Giants colors. And he looked at Jackson Dart. He looked at some of the talent, Carter and others, young players, Burns, and he said, I think there's a fair amount to work with here already. Obviously, we've got some work to do with the roster, but he definitely, when he watched film, that was true. He saw talent, and he saw a lot of wins that were left on the field, as you mentioned. And that's a team that should have won another 3 or 4 games. So with his coaching excellence that for the most part he sustained over a long period of time, you add that to the mix of a young, talented core plus people that they're bringing in and will draft. I think 10-7, again, he said it. He said he expects the playoffs in year one. So he's not afraid of the NFC East team. He wasn't from day one when I talked to him. Obviously, he has great respect for those teams, particularly the Eagles. But he's not afraid of the NFC East because I said to him, honestly, if you were looking at the not easiest, but the surest path to win a division title, you would take the Atlanta job because that division was won with a record that was 9-8. And so that is going to be the surest way to get to the playoffs is winning that division. But he wasn't concerned about that. He wasn't looking for the surest or easiest road to the postseason. He was looking for the best job. And I think the idea of being the head coach of the New York Football Giants was so big to him and his family. His brother and his father both wanted him to take this job, and obviously he took it.
So, and I think that's interesting. I have a little more insight into the makings of Coach Harbaugh. His father recruited me out of high school to go to University of Michigan. I was over there 2 weeks ago, and Coach and I must have sat for an hour and a half, just talking growing up in the Midwest, and how his father still talks about some of the values of University of Michigan, and he's a football person through and through. So I could see why the Giants' job was the job for him, because winning as the coach of the New York is going to be so much more fulfilling than winning in Atlanta. It's just the magnitude of this job and what he was built for. He was raised to do a job like the New York Giants. And, we talk so much about just the principles of winning, and it wasn't forced. It was, when you find these things in common, and he's been curious about the team, the players, if he's got it right, if he would mention a guy's name and tell me what he thinks, and then am I missing anything? And he's pretty spot on with the types of players that are on the roster. And the one thing I think people are going to be shocked is that he is not the my way or the highway. He is, but he's not. These players are going to feel a certain way about playing for him. They're gonna want to play for him. It's not gonna be, walking out of a meeting like, oh heck, here we go. They're gonna start believing in the things that make you a champion. They're gonna believe in their abilities, and I think that's his kind of superpower, is that he knows what it takes. He knows how to get players to play at that level. And he and I talked, and I just told him he's probably got 97 to 98% of this team wants to know how to do it right. Like, he's not going to have that big of an issue, because if you listen to the players, they all say the same thing, and they truly believe it. They just don't know how. They didn't know how. And the 1 or 2% that, is going to be a pain in the tail, he'll deal with them. He's been a coach long enough. But, he's got players on this team that genuinely want to know how to win. Like, let's just take the Denver game. You basically lose that game on a Hail Mary. Defensive back is in position and doesn't even know how to look for the ball or why he's where he is, right? With Harbaugh, if you're carrying number 2 up the seam, you'll know what to expect. You're just not running there because the card or the coach said this is your area, right? So these are the little things that, once players have a clear understanding of why they're doing what they're asked to do, it'll make a world of difference. And he's just, he's the kind of coach that, these players are going to really enjoy working hard for. Not just enjoy playing for, but they're going to want to work hard for him for the purpose of their mission, right? And, he's a bit of perfectionist. He's a bit of a perfectionist. He believes in perfection. He knows it's possible. So he won't tell guys, hey, let's work as hard as we can and try to get as close to perfect as possible. He's going to want to see things perfect. Because he believes in it, but he won't let that be the enemy of very good. But these guys are gonna want to do it right all the time.
Ian, is that sort of the character of the man that you know?
Yeah, I believe so. And I think Carl is right. He's not a my way or the highway guy, but he is, and he's not. And I think it's only a football person would really sort of get that and understand exactly what he's saying there. I think I also really like the coaching staff he assembled. There's a think tank that he put in place around the quarterback and I think a guy like Willie Taggart is going to be really important because there's a guy who really knows the Harbaugh way. He played for Jack Harbaugh at Western Kentucky and was a really good dual threat quarterback, and a guy who could help even while he's coaching the running backs can also help Jackson Dart sort of figure out when to run, when not to run. And again, he's been with the Harbaugh family forever. So I think it's a really good coaching staff around a very good, if not great, head coach, which the Giants needed. Darius Slayton said it. We need a Coughlin-esque presence as a head coach to walk in and just establish a program and have instant credibility. Now, I don't think he's as much of a hard ass as Coughlin was, but close enough. And a guy who is very personable, more so than I believe Tom Coughlin, and really can relate to today's young player, even though he's 63. He's a guy who wants to coach for another 10 years. He definitely wants to coach into his 70s. I've talked to him about that. And so, and by the way, I think that might actually impact what they do with the draft because I don't know. I've always been a Sonny Styles guy, and I had a conversation with a senior Giants official recently about the draft and their pick at 5. And even though Edmonds is in place now in the middle of that defense, and they made an investment in him, I said, I'm going to put this person went on a soliloquy about how unpredictable the Giants want to be before the draft. They want to be flexible. They want to keep people off balance in case there's a trade to be made. And after I listened to that, I said, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but I'm putting my $20 on Sonny Styles. And I think that even though you've got Edmonds in place, again, in the middle of that defense, he's a guy who's going to be there. He's played, including the postseason, 129 games in the NFL, I believe. So he has some miles on him. John wants to coach 10, 12 years to get a guy like Styles in the middle of what he wants to do defensively and to reestablish the kind of identity the Giants had when Carl played. I think that's so important to who the Giants are, that physicality, toughness on defense. And I think that's long-term, somebody like that to reestablish what Harbaugh believes is very important with a franchise like the Giants, physicality and toughness on the defensive side of the ball, to me, makes more sense than any other pick.
You know, that's really funny you should say that, Bob. And I think you're probably going to go in the same place I go.
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
You talk about my teams. The Giants did the exact same thing the year I was drafted. They had 4 All-Pros and a really good backup set of linebackers. And yet I was selected and Gary Reasons was selected as kind of the next phase of long-term success. So we live in such a microwave mindset when it comes to, what fans see in front of them and not how teams are really built. So you fall in love with the now, and he's looking at how you really build something. And he's done it for many years in Baltimore. But yeah, I could see if he wants a linebacker, he's not looking at today. Yes, he is, but he's also looking at the next 5 or 6 years with having a stability and dominance at the position.
Yeah, and obviously he was in Baltimore for 18 years, and I know he's 63, but he's looking at this as a 10 to 12 year proposition. And so to put somebody who is, to me, you look at Styles, and it's almost like he's a combination of Carl, Lawrence Taylor, Harry Carson, throw in Gary Reasons if you want. And just when I think of the Giants, I think most people, maybe of my generation, the first thing you think of is defense, linebackers, people who can get to the quarterback. You start there, and then it's the offensive line, okay? And then an opportunistic quarterback. So Phil Simms was not a superstar quarterback, but he could play like a superstar when it mattered most. Same thing with Eli Manning. Opportunistic, very good, if not great quarterbacks. And so those are the 3 things that the Giants had in place when they won Super Bowls. But it started with the defense, which started with the linebackers. And so when you look at Downs, versus Styles. You look at Ohio State, you wonder, how did they ever lose a football game? It's like half the draft is Ohio State guys in the first round. But I think that it's going to be a tough call. I'm assuming Jeremiah Love is going to Tennessee at 4. But if he's there, that's going to complicate things. But if he's not, I think it's coming down to those two players. So who do you like better? To me, I think Harbaugh believes it's a big man's game. And you're talking about a 6'5", 6'6" guy, 245 pounds versus a safety who's 6 foot, 205 pounds. So you got 5 inches and 40 pounds closer to the ball. This is really more an educated guess than anything else. I would lean towards Styles over Downs. Both are great players. He's had great linebackers and safeties in the middle of the field in Baltimore. So when it comes down to, I think it's going to be one of those two players, and I think the linebacker makes just a little bit more sense.
Yeah, you hear him talk. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Bobby.
You know, I was just thinking about Baltimore, right? Like, I don't remember them drafting a running back like Love over the period of time, but I can think of them drafting a lot of impact defensive players high. Yeah.
And he is often on record saying, we got to stop the run. We got to stop the run. He has high hopes for Dexter Lawrence, but the first thing he said to me when we were having that conversation about the defense, he's like, and he asked me, I told him, I said, I think, Dexter can still be a dominant player. I said, we don't know we're not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what happened, but I suspect it was his arm last year. And he says, I got to get him some help. I got to get another big guy in there. And he's like, I hope he can return to that dominant player. So they have high hopes for Dexter. And when he talks about stopping the run, he knows one guy in there just won't do it. And he's got to get another guy in there, and then putting another, really talented linebacker behind them. They're going to be a tough team to run against. And that was, kind of where the Giants' issues started. And they just went from run game to pass game because they were, the bottom third of the league stopping the run and the bottom 5 in the league overall defensively. But if you can't stop anybody on first down, you just can't do much in this league. And conversely, he talked about the importance of an offensive line, to your point, Ian. He's like, I need to be able to run the football because I don't want my guys facing second down blitzes all the time. He says, because it's hard to call plays on second and long because you're going to get blitzes that you can't control. And he says, I want to be able to run the ball and then do what I want on second and third down.
Yeah, and I mean that's and he had the luxury of having Derrick Henry to be able to play that kind of game. So Giants are gonna need to have sort of that same kind of mindset. Hey, Carl, I know that you and Starter have done unbelievable things, especially with the NCAA tournament, but I know you also run a business and you're always looking for talented, qualified people that want to work for you. And that's not the easiest thing in the world to try to navigate, is it?
No, it is not.
Well, I'll tell you what, we got help for you. Because if you're looking for that perfect fit, check out ZipRecruiter. They're going to find the right candidate for you. They want to know, they're going to bring you the people that are passionate about what your job is all about. And they're going to distill it for you because they have unbelievable technology. They use AI. They have everything kind of working together so that it saves you time. It saves you money. It streamlines the process. Try it for free right now at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Find candidates who want your job on ZipRecruiter. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Meet your match on ZipRecruiter. And, John Harbaugh certainly seems to be the right match for what the Giants were doing, even though they didn't have to go through all of those channels. They looked at his resume and they said, boom, you're our guy. Yeah. So now, Ian, some of the talk out of the owners' meeting, of course, Odell Beckham Jr. came up. He played in that flag game. he looked pretty good. As I try to remind my sons who are in their 20s, who grew up as kids on Odell Beckham Jr., that was a flag game. And Harbaugh coached him in Baltimore. And look, he played well for Harbaugh in his time there in Baltimore. Is this more fan fodder and wishful thinking than a reality for the Giants at this point?
Great question. I think it's a little bit of both. But what I love about Harbaugh is he didn't shoot it down. He's open-minded. You need open-minded coaches. And he's like, well, listen, you look at your receiver room right now, and could probably use a boost of talent. And Odell Beckham Jr. is likely the most talented receiver the Giants have ever dressed. And I actually think he was pretty coachable, more than people realize. I know his teammates loved him. Carl knows that, the vast majority of them. And at this point, he's going to turn 34 in the middle of the season. He's had the suspension. He's had injuries. The last 5 years, you look at the production, it's not really there. But that receiver room could use a talented veteran player to help out. I actually think Darius Slayton is going to have a bounce back season. Slayton wanted a coach like this. Hopefully his hamstring issues are behind him. And he's the kind of guy, he's so thoughtful. Love talking to him in the locker room. And I told him this, like, I don't know if you feel like we take that for granted, members of the media, but I know as a columnist who's been doing this for 40 years, I really appreciate the fact that you could walk up to your locker and talk to you about a big picture topic, and you're always willing to engage. And I actually want him to be, that first year, he obviously had a very good year, and he struggled last year, and I want to see a bounce back from him, and I think he will. But they can use some help there, assuming that the first pick isn't Tate in the draft. I don't think it will be. I think it's a realistic option, and I do think it's one that Harbaugh will explore and figure out. Now, the one thing with Beckham is just like with Aaron Rodgers, when he's on your roster, daily questions about, okay, why is he not getting reps? Why is he not getting touches? If you're willing to deal with that, and I think John is a strong enough coach to be willing to deal with that if he's going to help the team, then I think you do pursue it. I think it makes sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, in Baltimore, they didn't get those questions about why he wasn't getting reps. But even though when they lost the playoff game, he was having a pretty good game, and then he was just not in key moments. That was the only time those questions came up. But I think Odell, who I'm super fond of, I don't have a problem with his presence in the locker room. He's no longer the guy who magically sucks the oxygen out of the room. He's an established NFL player. I think the aura of Odell Beckham has we've all absorbed it, right? So he's a pro now. He's a pro's pro. He's gonna do things that will wow you even at his age, but he's gonna be a good teammate. Like, he never was not a good teammate, but he was always the guy who had the aura that, everything, he was the center of the earth, right? Everything just gravitated towards him. If he said it, how's he feeling? He's got his hood on, he's got the hood off. That guy's gone. He still loves the game. He's never been outworked. He's always been in shape. I only see him as an asset. I think he's a stabilizing force, if you ask me, for someone like Malik Nabers, who's still super raw, super talented, just as emotional as a young Odell Beckham because he wants it so bad. The seasoned Odell Beckham can now calibrate a guy like Nabers. He's the right type of veteran because he's had the level of success. And I think, and I'm not saying this as to discount Odell Beckham, but Odell can vicariously live through some of the things he'll be working with a guy like Nabers on, right? I think it would be great. I think, you have to raise, and I think he'd be great. He and Slayton to get along well. But you look at the rest of the roster and you say, okay, well, what does that mean for a guy like Hyatt? What does that mean for, some free agents? Well, in this league, it's about the talent, right? So you rise to the occasion and you make the decisions difficult for coaches. or you make it an exciting moment for coaches saying, wow, look at all this stuff we got. But the right receiver room could use someone like him for the purposes of not just his skill set, but really helping calibrate a guy like Nabers, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with 99% of what Carl just said. The one thing I'd quibble with is, he didn't get those questions, or Harbaugh didn't in Baltimore about Odell, but in New York, because it's the Giants, it's because of that's where his career started, where he took off. I do think those questions will be asked in this market, maybe nowhere else. But everything you said about the impact he can have in a positive way on Nabers and a lot of people, 100% agree with. Yeah, he's not that same figure anymore. And I think he understands that. He could still be a significant, an asset that really matters and is meaningful in that locker room and on the field. If he's not playing or not getting a lot of touches, I do think the head coach will be asked about that more than maybe he would in any other market. And I think John Harbaugh has seen it all in the NFL, so I imagine he's comfortable handling that, and that won't be a big issue for him in determining whether or not to sign Odell.
Well, let me ask you this, Ian. If you look at the offensive dynamics, a lot of what Harbaugh's offense does is run through tight ends, right? So it's not, he's not a guy that pushes the ball down the field on every play. Like it's going to be some fun stuff with this quarterback, but the offense is kind of self-explanatory when you look at the construct of how it's always been under Harbaugh. They take their shots when they can, but yes, Odell's part of this construct, and it just doesn't run through wide receivers the way, we've been accustomed to see it here.
Yeah, I'm interested too. Who is the second starting wide receiver right now? Is it Slayton? And are you comfortable with the fact that Nabers is going to be fully healthy in week 1? I'm not.
No,
so that's where I think
that's the big question right there.
Yeah. And is Odell a better football player than Darius Slayton right now? Mm-hmm. So I think that it does make sense to seriously pursue it. And I just like the way Harbaugh handled it. And I think this is the benefit of having him as your head coach, is he didn't shoot it down and he wasn't running away from it. He's like, I talk to him all the time. He's one of my favorite people in the world. And we talk about the possibilities, and we'll see if it can be worked out. I actually love the way he handled it, and stay open-minded. It looks like he could probably help this team more than most. So I think that it'll be interesting to follow as the offseason progresses.
All right, Ian, just in wrapping up here, I know next week you're going to be at Augusta for the Masters, almost a quarter of a century of Masters. Got a pick?
I went to high school with Scottie Scheffler's father. We played a zillion pickup basketball games together. And so I'm not saying this because of that, but I think Scheffler he hasn't been Scottie this year, but I think at Augusta National, everything changes. I suspect he's going to win again. Rory is liberated now that he won last year. So there are no more ghosts of Augusta that he has to deal with. So I think he's going to be at the top of the leaderboard as well. Unfortunately, Tiger won't be there as a story. But I have to go with Scottie Scheffler. I think he's going to end up with 4 or 5 green jackets, and I think this year will be another one for him.
Carl, you got a pick, or you haven't handicapped it yet?
I haven't, but I like Scheffler. I like
Scheffler. You know who I'm pulling for? Chris Gotterup.
Yeah, Rutgers, Jersey guy. Yeah.
It's been a great story. The fact that what he's done over since he beat Rory in that final group at the Scottish Open. I mean, he's taken that thing and run with it, and he's not, now he's in the TGL, and he's one of the stars of that thing. It's amazing what happened in the span of a guy fighting for his card and, playing in opposite field events and everything else, and now he's ranked in the top 10 in the world. Ian, we look forward to you joining us here on Believe in Giants. You can read all of Ian's work in The Athletic, and this is going to be a lot of fun chopping it up with you.
Hey, it's my pleasure and my honor, to be with you guys, and thanks so much for including me.
We're going to have to get Ian here. We're going to have to make a new mug and get Ian's picture on it.
Exactly.
Hey, Carl,
I haven't earned that yet. You have to earn that. I have not earned that, so put that cup down.
Thanks to our friends at FanDuel. Carl, how do we like to end it?
Tell a friend to tell a friend. Believe in
Believe
Giants.
in Giants.